Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is February the 9th, just a few minutes after 2 o'clock. This is the House Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. We are now in session. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Representatives Cochran. Here. Cooper. Here. Darby. Doggett. Present. Hardaway. Halsey. Here. Hurt. Here. Potts. Reedy. Rudder. Here. Shaw. Todd. Here. Travis. Here. Vital. Here. Wright. Here. Vice Chairman Grills. Here. Chairman Halford.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk. Any personal orders? Anybody with a personal order this afternoon? Seeing none, we will go straight into our business. We don't have any bills on notice today, but we do have some presentations that I think will be very interesting to everybody. These people have testified before us on different occasions. It's always been an enjoyable thing. So we will go ahead and start that right now. We will go out of session. And first on our list is Commissioner Hatcher. Commissioner Hatcher, join us, please. You are recognized, sir.
How am I coming through there? Can you hear me?
You're loud and clear.
Well, it seems like I've been here all day because I have. Do you guys eat lunch?
If we can.
I'm about to starve to death. Yeah. So I appreciate this opportunity. It's always nice to come before you guys, and especially to talk about the Department in Agriculture, which I love so much. I don't have to remind you guys, but agriculture, including forestry, is the largest industry in the state by far. It really got way above hospitality industry because of the pandemic, and it provides the food and fiber, in some cases fuel, to Tennesseans every day. And so we want it to continue to be the most important and the number one industry in the state, and we hope it'll stay that way. The department really, and there's other members of my team here that can jump in here. I've just got a few minutes to go through just kind of a broad overview, but the department reaches every Tennessean every day of all the different divisions we have, as you'll see here in a minute. But look at all the thousands of farms that we have in the state, almost 70,000. Half the state is forested. I think this economic impact figure may be a little bit low. I've heard as high as 85 billion, and you can see the number of jobs, so it's tremendously important. Agriculture and forestry are diversified with all kinds of operation. You can see the top commodities listed here at the bottom. We've got, a lot of row crop farming going on in West Tennessee. We've got a lot of forestry all across the state, but especially in Middle and East Tennessee. But our job is really kind of safeguard the food and fiber and ensure equity in the marketplace, and that's with ag and forestry resources, and that's what we aim to do. We have 5 major divisions, and they're listed here: administration and grants, forestry, consumer and industry services, animal health, and business development. I will say that the forestry division is the largest division. Is it David, almost 400 employees within forestry alone, so that's a big part of it. It was kind of an education to me when I first became commissioner to talk. I try to talk about forestry every time I talk about agriculture because they're intertwined. And then you look at rural communities, you've got 2 real main opportunities. Agriculture, you got a lot of farmland, and you got a lot of trees, and that's what we have to work with, and we're proud of that. Administration and grants, it's further broken down into these. You can read through this. We are so fortunate to have legislative support, governor's office support, and governor's support for federal funding for this for the first wave of CARES money. We allocated $43 million to 1,100 businesses, and that was huge. I think it was one of the best ag and forestry business assistant cost share programs, if you will, in the United States, because it helped forestry as well as had a big impact on meat processing capacity. Record amount of emergency food went out the door through our commodity division, 68.6 million, and we had also a record amount of projects and money that went for land and water stewardship through our portion of the real estate transfer tax. Forestry, again, the biggest division of agriculture. They do a lot of different things. You can see the list up here. You know, most of the trees in the state are owned by private landowners, and they work with those. They're all the time preparing and getting ready for forest fires. It's one of the most difficult things to do is prepare for war and a peacetime, and they do a really good job of it. We've sent a lot of firefighters out of state in the past to help in our readiness, train our people up, and we also it's a revenue generator because we get money from those states that we assist. So we think that's a really cool thing. But it's a real education to understand the importance of forestry and the importance of best forestry management practices for healthy and sustainable forests. Clear cutting is a part of that. You know, there's a small percentage, a number of acres of any given forest that you could clear cut so that you can have the best growth of the forest back. Lots of burn permits issued. That's kind of we've added an online system to help in that, and that's really been an efficiency thing. And you can see the number of forestry prescription plans for a lot of acreage there. Consumer and industry, excuse me, services is kind of our regulatory division, and that's a tough challenge to have the right balance of regulatory oversight and also be friendly and compatible with industry and commerce at the speed of commerce. And I think we do a pretty good job of that. Kind of our motto is we like to think that we educate before we regulate. We do intervene if it's a food safety issue or a major violation very quickly, but we do try to educate before we regulate and with a heavy hand. And you can see the different, from the fuel pump to weights and measures to feed, seed, and fertilizer, we impact a lot of Tennesseans every single day. The animal health, my previous experience as a decade as a state veterinarian, I know this part pretty well. Tennessee is a big beef state. A lot of livestock production goes on in the state. We also have, we're a big poultry state. Most of the poultry meat genetics of the world comes from Tennessee. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's our goal to support those livestock industries and try to protect them. And we do a lot of surveillance testing for livestock diseases of consequence, zoonotic diseases of consequence, and emerging diseases, because there's a pretty good chance the next pandemic will come from animals. And something that was added on in the last several years has been livestock welfare issues. We inherited that from Tennessee or UT Extension. They were glad to move that over to us. That's managed through the state veterinarian's office and supported by our ag crime unit. you can see the total number of, there's only one state animal diagnostic lab. In the past, we've been had back-to-back budget cuts and been a constant target of that. But it's our goal to bolster the animal health lab as much as we can to get it up to where we need to be as far as surveillance and service for necropsy exams across the state. Business development, that's this particular division has been super busy. We've had opportunities in economically distressed counties, as you know, in at-risk counties, and Tennessee in general through this pandemic. Opportunities for ag and forestry businesses, and so this team has been super busy and been able to accomplish a whole lot through their allocation of record levels of federal and state money for certain cost share programs. The Ag Enhancement Program that some of you may be familiar with is, in my opinion, the best producer-oriented cost share program in the country. We had a record level of funding for that this past year, a record number of applicants for that opportunity, and that reaches all 95 counties and does a great job putting some of those monies on the ground. This is something we've developed that could really help y'all with your constituents. If you go to our website, we've got what I like to call, it's a dashboard, which gives all the data, number of licenses and permits, inspections, lab tests by each division, what we do by county, and you can sort it by county, by region, and for the entire state. So if you've got a question about how many food manufacturing inspections we do in Giles County, you can pull it up on this, or for your whole region, Rusty, if you've got interest. But it just gives you an idea of the services that the Department of Ag provides and the breadth and scope of those services in your area. So we've been hard at it. I don't know what it's like. Well, I do. There was a short time when I was commissioner where we didn't have the pandemic. But for the most part, I don't know what it's like to be without a pandemic as we enter this third year. The priorities for 2022, in my opinion, the county, regional, and state fairs are extremely important to Tennessee. It may be the only opportunity that many Tennesseans have exposure to agriculture and forestry. I think that's important. It celebrates our heritage. It celebrates the importance of agriculture and forestry. And we're going to do our level best to support that. And it shows in the proposed budget, hopefully, that y'all will pass for the second and third year of funding for $9.5 million for the Wilson County for capital improvements. And as part of that, we hope to include $500,000 for all fairs to be distributed out that way as well. Ag education, we've recommended a cost increase for 6 positions in FFA within the Department of Agriculture to support, not to transfer, but to support what Department of Education is doing with their curriculum-based approach. And so we will help with activities and events and training for FFA outside of the classroom. Animal disease testing, we feel like it's important to increase our surveillance and our footprint in testing for zoonotic diseases of significance. And we've got, that's on our priority list to bolster the core animal health diagnostic lab, since it's the only lab that we have in the state for animal disease. Livestock grading, over the years, through budget cuts, we lost several livestock specialists and reporters that do reporting for livestock market sales. And so we met with the industry and talked with the industry, and we're hoping to add two of those positions back into the business development group. emergency preparedness is super important for the forestry division. Our state forester, David Arnold, has doubled down. It's one of his priorities to bolster that and be prepared. It's also Dr. Beatty's priority, who's the state veterinarian, for the same thing on the animal side. Just today, there was a high path AI disease outbreak confirmed or announced in Indiana in turkeys. I don't know if you saw that, but that was announced at 10:30 Eastern time or Central Time today. So we know that the migratory waterfowl that in the Mississippi Flyway and the Atlantic Flyway this year have a certain level of high path AI in some of those migratory birds. So we're upping our biosecurity level with the poultry industry in general. And then we do know that, and you'll probably see this more in the next year's budget cycle, but Tennessee is very attractive for people and businesses to move here. And so we've got a huge incremental, exponential increase in a number of our services for inspections, for licenses, for permits across the state. And the advanced development's just going to accelerate that. Let's see. Expanded programs. We've got a beginning farmers program within our ag enhancement. We're looking into, we'll have a urban agriculture and forestry program within ag enhancement as well. We were notified we got a second round of federal funding of $50 million to also support the supply chain and ag and forestry businesses like the first wave did. We're excited about that. We managed the first one, and we think we can make improvements on managing the second. I mentioned the beginning farmers focus. The average age of a farmer is, 60, about my age, and getting older. So we need to do all we can to mentor anybody that's interested in farming and forestry, regardless of their background or where they come from, because we're going to need it. You don't have to grow up on a farm to be a farmer. You just got to have the want to, and we want to engage on that. We think there's opportunities to do that in urban agriculture. We're looking into concept of ag and forestry training that could bring in a underserved community, and we think there's a lot of possibilities there. We're continuing our good relationship with UT and TSU. TSU has a lot of good, they've got probably one of the best beginning farmers programs in the country, and we're working with them to bolster that. And then the farm and forest conservation thing is in the next decade is going to be our biggest challenge that we faced, in my opinion, with this rapid development. How do we maintain that right balance of loss of high value ag and forestry land due to the I guess the good problem of having all the people and businesses come here. So that's going to be, you're going to see that is a real challenge. And that pretty much wraps it up. We're excited about the future. We really enjoy the support of you guys and the governor and the governor's office. But we've got some real challenges coming up. Supply chain, high input costs for farmers, fertilizer prices. It's not going to be a bed of roses coming up, but I think we're up for it. The farmers and foresters are resilient, and we're going to be okay. Right, Rusty?
Thank you, Dr. Hatcher. We appreciate you being here. Members, we are on a little bit of a tight schedule. We have time for a couple of questions for Dr. Hatcher. And I have on my list Representative Grills. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Commissioner, for being here. Real quick, my area is primarily row crop. What efforts is your department making to expand opportunities for the market? We've had 2 or 3 grain buying facilities shut down in West Tennessee over the past 2-3 years. Is there an effort being put forth to maybe expand some of those markets, and not just in West Tennessee, but here in Middle Tennessee? Because I know several people have to drive 4 to 5 hours just to unload their grain.
No, absolutely. We've been working with ECD on a number of opportunities. We had leads on soybean processors that didn't materialize in places, and we're acutely aware of it. We need more processing facilities of all commodities in Tennessee. So I guess, and through our cost share program, through Ag Enhancement, we've doubled down and have row crop solutions, which was the first time that was to that level of money. So we're aware of the issues, and it's trying to improve that relationship with ECD, because their emphasis sometimes is on businesses that have large numbers of jobs, and so we're trying to fill that void for smaller businesses that are ag and forestry that have smaller numbers of jobs, and we're bridging that gap and working with ECD every day to try to get more resources put in that direction, because it makes all the difference. But we've dealt with some of the barge loading grain facilities. We've just improving grain loading capacity on a barge, for instance. If you speed that up, it has a big impact on barge traffic. You have less barges that are going back empty, and lots of opportunities to improve on transportation and processing. But it's tough, but we're working on it every day.
Members, we have time for one more question. I'm going to recognize Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I represent District 31, which is Bledsoe County, Sequatchie County, Ray County, and now the Van Buren County. And most of your department knows me as Laura's husband. That's where it all comes out. But I was impressed when they hired you as commissioner because of your resume. Could you give us just a little bit of your resume and what you've done over the last 20 years? I mean, what your profession is, because it's pretty impressive.
Well, just briefly, I was the governor's farm veterinarian for a long time and knew his father well. And then, so I was in private practice, predominantly dairy practice. The family's in the dairy business. The family bottles its own milk. My son's running that operation now. I was state veterinarian for 10 years. Most large animal practitioners are broken down physically like I am, either wrists or hips or shoulders or something, and that was the case with me. So I started to back out of it in 2005. My daughter's a veterinarian. She took over the veterinary practice, and that freed me up to do this. But I'm an old, broke-down cow veterinarian, basically.
Commissioner, we appreciate you being here. Thanks for coming. Why don't you go get you something to eat now if you hadn't had anything?
Yeah, is there not any kind of is there food that y'all go to when in between?
Boy, you just got to get it when you can get it. That's all it is to it. Next on our agenda is Tennessee Forestry Commission. Johnny Hurd is here to give us a little insight on forestry. And Johnny, you are recognized.
Maybe it's on. We figure that out, we'll do pretty good. Well, Chairman Hopford and members of the committee, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present the Forestry Commission annual report. The commission is made up of 7 appointed voting members, 3 ex officio members, and this year we've had Bob Qualman rotate off the commission. Bill Legg has been appointed by Governor Lee to represent the landowners under 500 acres. The commission is appointed residents, industry leaders, and conservation representatives who oversee, approve, and recommend planning and policies that protect, conserve, and enhance Tennessee forest resources. And y'all will get a copy of our report. Looks like it's being handed out. Some of our duties and functions are nominate candidates for state forester. We provide 3 to the governor. Review, approve, and submit the annual budget for the Forestry Division to the Commissioner of Agriculture. Make an annual report to the Governor, Department of Agriculture Commissioner, the Tennessee Senate Energy, Agriculture, and Natural Resources Committee, and the House Ag and Natural Resources Committee. We also recommend to the General Assembly legislation to protect, conserve, and develop forest resources of the state, and approve the division's comprehensive long-range plan for state forest resources. Also establish the state forest policies that will enable the division to manage its programs, and include in budget recommendations those goals and objectives necessary to implement state forest policies. Some of the actions and activities from last year, we identified the need for the division to become more engaged with the USDA Farm Services Agency, expressed concern about the retention and recruitment of qualified personnel, endorsed the 2020 Forest Action Plan, and encouraged an increase in timber sales from state forests. The division also acquired the fire response. I call it a program. They said it wasn't a program, but whatever. Division got the fire response. This is an enterprise-wide decision support system for monitoring wildland fire incidents and operational activities. The system supports incident management, comprehensive resource management, real-time resource tracking for firefighter safety, and situational awareness for emergency responders and the public. It's a geographically advanced software allowing dispatchers and public information officers in the office, as well as incident commanders and emergency responders in the field, to see where all incidents and resources are located on a map in real time. What that amounts to, every firefighting dozer we have and every firefighter has some type of GPS unit on them, and we're able to monitor where they are. The division suppressed 709 wildfires for 6,900 acres and safely implemented 232 beneficial prescribed fires across 12,000 acres. This may have been the first time that we've intentionally burned more than was burned by wildfires. They deployed 215 highly trained personnel out of state to support wildland fire and hurricane emergencies across 13 states, resulting in transferable skills and experience to be utilized in Tennessee, as well as generating more than $2.6 million in revenue. We issued 431,000 safe debris burn permits to residents, agencies, and private companies, totaling a little over 34,000 acres. We launched the tnwildlandfire.gov page. This is featuring 3 main services provided, including fighting fire, preventing fire, and prescribing fire. We also provided assistance to 2,899 forest landowners who own 115,000 acres of forest land, received the 2020 Governor's Environmental Stewardship Award in Ag Forestry for the efforts made in managing the hemlock woolly adelgid in Tennessee. And we launched a new Duck and Elk River watershed forest and buffer cost share initiative for family forest owners in those watersheds. The division conducted 1,027 harvest operation site visits statewide. We confirmed that the loggers implemented BMPs 98% of the time on these harvested sites. We evaluated 38 logging operations with water quality complaints. 22 of the producers were found to have issues affecting water quality. Responsible producers were provided technical assistance to bring the issues into compliance with Tennessee's Water Quality Control Act. In reforestation, we partnered with the White Oak Initiative to encourage the public to collect white oak acorns for conservation needs. And this came about because the vendors that we buy acorns from were not providing enough, so we went to the public, and that was a success doing that. We developed a partnership with Growing Bridges LLC for 500,000 pine, loblolly pine seedlings and 250,000 tulip poplar seedlings used for certified carbon offsets for oil gas pipelines in Oklahoma. The nursery sold about 2.75 million seedlings last year, and almost 2 million of those were pine seedlings. And 776,000 were hardwood. The division completed 24 scheduled timber sales totaling 1,375 stand acres and yielding 10.7 million board feet and generating $3,495,000 in revenue. We hosted the Tennessee Healthy Hardwood Field Day demonstration at Chickasaw State Forest, completed Natchez Trace State Forest Work Center, and began the Chuck Swan State Forest Work Center. And we've really appreciated the support from the legislature because we had some really dilapidated buildings, and those were much needed. We partnered with a business development division to create an analytical services program. Projects included producing 5 mill siding and timber availability analysis for forest products companies considering building in Tennessee. I also produced a comprehensive forest resource availability analysis to support a Tennessee Sawmills application for federal grant funding. The grant was awarded and will enable the sawmill to generate its own energy and transition to a zero waste facility. We developed a mobile equipment inspections online form to demonstrate the division's physical and material responsibility and ensure preparedness and identify maintenance issues before they scale to larger, more costly problems. And since this is our fiscal year 2020 to 2021, we have some updates for fiscal year 2022. As y'all know, workforce development's been talked about, and it's getting workers that we need is a problem. So the Tennessee forest industry is in critical need of workers to fill jobs in the mills and in the woods. The division partnered with the Tennessee Forestry Association to initiate programs in primary and secondary schools as well as vocational schools to encourage young Tennesseans to look toward a career in our industry. The pay is good, work is dependable, and training is provided on site. The division should continue to play a vital role in providing technical and financial assistance to support these efforts. And carbon markets. This is a rapidly emerging market with potential to provide family forest owners with passive income simply by keeping their woods growing. It is important that the division continue to monitor this market and develop technical assistance for landowners to participate. And partnering with federal and state agencies, there are numerous conservation programs and services provided by several federal and state agencies. With an injection of federal dollars expected to flow into these programs, we encourage the division to leverage their resources to capitalize on those investments to enhance its public safety, conservation, and landowner outreach responsibilities. Any questions?
Questions from Mr. Hurd? Anyone have questions for Mr. Hurd? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question is, who is Ms. McDonald?
Who is what?
McDonald.
McDonald. Miss McDonald?
We'll get to that later. All right, on the urban forestry, are you involved in any active plantings in any of the urban areas? Memphis, Shelby County in particular? I'm thinking about
Dave,
vacant lots and
Can you answer that? We are.
things of that
we-
nature.
Yes.
Yes, David Arnold, State Forester, and we do have grant programs to make them available to cities, towns, and communities to plant bald and burlap-sized trees, also to plant seedlings along creeks to establish that riparian forest along the creeks to help filter the water and keep the water clean. And we work with the urban communities to help them manage their forest resources, similar to rural forest landowners.
Do you have something, a program that's designed to support, in essence, blight by turning vacant lots into orchards?
We don't have a program specifically for that, but we have supported in written letters of support for other organizations that are pursuing grant funding to do similar things like that. And I think there was an organization in Memphis recently that asked for our letter of support to receive that funding. That one was not for fruit-producing trees. It was for shade trees and stuff like that. But we support other organizations to pursue that.
Okay, my people can't eat shade, but I'd love to work with you on getting some program in place for fruit orchards. And Mr. Chairman, I'd love to have the committee support such an effort. We've got problems with blight, problems with overgrown lots, trying to find the owners, and the maintenance is of high costs. Our tax rolls are being impacted. And my thought is that we can turn some of them into orchards, fruit bearing or nut bearing, and kill two birds with one stone. Not only would that support the community by providing foods, nutritional foods, but it would also cut down on the maintenance of the lots. I'd love to be able to work with your
Sure, I'll
department
put you in
such.
contact with our staff in our urban forestry program, and I think we can help you out.
All right, I appreciate that.
Representative Halsey.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate what you do. I just had two questions. How long does it take for the average hardwood to grow 2-foot diameter? And the second question is, when we harvest hardwood, either it's private or comes off forest land, who's the biggest purchaser or buyer of hardwoods out of Tennessee?
I'm going to answer a little bit of the first question, and I'll let Dave answer some. But when you talk about how long it takes a tree to attain certain diameters, when you're in really good soils like in West Tennessee, we can grow a tree 16, 18 inches in 60 years? But where I live in Wayne County, and I've done some of these continuous forest plots where you go out and you board the trees, and we've got 12-inch chestnut oak that are 115 years old. I mean, it's highly variable with your site.
And you're asking about who buys Tennessee's hardwoods, and like many markets, it's a global market. I mean, we have the industry in Tennessee is a $24 billion industry, employs 98,000 people. And of course, that in-state industry uses the raw materials, but then surrounding mills get some of our hardwoods as well. But the export market is also very critical, especially to our hardwood sawmills. And they participate, some sawmills participate pretty aggressively in that export market. And in some situations, that's how they're able to stay in business, is take advantage of those export markets and diversify across those export markets.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being here. Not ladies and gentlemen, but gentlemen, we appreciate you being here and giving us the knowledge that you have gained, and we appreciate that very much. So we look forward to seeing you again next time.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. We certainly appreciate what y'all do.
All right, next on our list is Tennessee Soybean Association. Mr. Parks Wells, you are recognized, sir. Would you please identify yourself for the record, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I'm Parks Wells. I'm the CEO for the soybean producers in the state, and that includes the Soybean Promotion Council, the association, and the Soybean Promotion Board, which is it's an entity of the state government. And I've been doing this for over 30 years as CEO for the soybeans, but I've been around soybeans for over 50 years. And in fact, I want to point out to Representative Hurt that I traded futures for your grandfather back in 1972 and made and accepted delivery at the Chicago Board of Trade. So I go that far back in the markets. The sheets that are being handed out, the handout, I want to give you an overall view of soybeans and part of the economics of it, and then also to see where it's used and the value to the state. And I can start by saying that in the value to the state, that everyone in this room has consumed soybeans today. And it's either going to be from chickens and, eggs this morning, bacon. Everyone has makeup on. There's going to be some soy oil in that makeup, partially, and even the shoes you wear, clothes on your back, soybeans are everywhere. If you'll turn to the first page on this, I just want to show you the economics, and some of this comes from the TASC publication that they have. And on the top there where it says soybeans, the soybean acreage this last year was 1.55 million acres. And we planted, this is in the red, we planted or harvested 1.52 million acres. Now, first of all, if you're not familiar with an acre is about 91 yards on a football field. So that's a lot of football fields. The yield was 50 bushels to the acre, and this is kind of a normal yield for the national side. And our production for this last year is 76 million bushels. The previous year was 81 million. And that's a lot of soybeans. The price the previous year was $10.80 a bushel, and this year we can say an average price about $12.50. So this year we're going to push toward $1 billion in production value. And I don't know what the full amount of that would be on the economic development side, but most of the time we're looking at 7 or 8 times the turnover in that. Below that is corn, and so the corn acreage this last year it's about 1,020,000 acres. It's gone up, and the production is 170 bushels to the acre. So they're clearly the biggest producer of kernels, and the price is about $5.30 this average last year. And I want you to turn over to the second sheet and look at the market structure that we have. These are the futures that have been traded the nearby month. And if you go all the way over to the right-hand side, you'll see where the last bar goes up. This was yesterday's close in the markets. And so beans have traded in this from 76, they were below $5 a bushel. They've gone up to over 17, and right now they're around $15.50. And so that's a high price for us. The main thing is to see the variability in this. I mean, they're going up and down every day, all day long, and that's not only just the price, but then the production is the same. Now, when you produce soybeans, there's not a value to them. It's only in the oil in the mill where they're crushed. And the TDA is also helping us work with getting a crusher in the state. Back in the early 70s, Tennessee was the #2 state in crushing soybeans. And now we're last because we don't have any crushers left because of the economics and the old equipment that we used to have. So the next chart on there is soybean oil. And I want to tell you about oil because it has risen significantly to get the higher price of soybeans. And it's basically because of biodiesel. And the biodiesel is the national organization was the National Biodiesel until last month, and they changed it to Clean Fuels Alliance America. And the reason they did that is they're increasing or bringing in renewable diesel, and sustainable aviation fuel. And so we're working in all that area. And toward the back, there's this sheet, the second from the last page, and it tells you about biodiesel and renewable diesel. Now, let me just say, biodiesel is made from soybeans. It's kind of the same as petroleum down in the ground because they're both made from plants and animals. The petroleum in the ground's been under tremendous pressure. It's dead leaves and animals. It's been compressed, heated, boiled, and then we pull the oil out of the ground. But it takes millions and millions of years to make that. Soybean biodiesel takes 1 year. We get a crop, we crush the beans, we get the oil, we go through a process, and then we get biodiesel. Renewable diesel, if you're looking on this sheet, is made in hydro heating. We're made from transesterification, which means we add an alcohol to it, and we separate that part of the oil out, and then we have another byproduct called glycerin. So this is a big deal. This right in here, and we started biodiesel because we wanted to get away from the dirty air in diesel, and we wanted to get a cleaner. Well, it's not just a cleaner fuel. It reduces a lot of different carbons that go out, but it helps to run this in areas that have asthma, such as Knoxville. Knoxville is one of the points in the United States that has a lot of asthma. So these two things right here are important, knowing the difference between renewable diesel and biodiesel. One of the rendering plants that we have over in Union City, Darling Industries, has gone together with Valero Energy, and they put in a $3 billion processing plant for renewable diesel in New Orleans. And they're building one in Port Arthur, Texas, about the same size. This is going to replace a lot of diesel that's burns dirtier. It's going to take away some of that carbon, and it's going to be really good for the country to go this way. Now, the petroleum industry has fought against biodiesel for a long time, and now they're coming to us. And we've worked with the marine industry and the railroad industry trying to get them to use biodiesel because it's cleaner. And they pushed us out the door numerous times. Well, now they're coming to us. They want to use this. And when you have the situation on the ocean, there's a lot of pollution there, and then that leads us over into sustainable aviation fuel. SAF will not use a lot of soybean oil. It'll use sugars and other things. Excuse me. But it's going to be big, and all the industries are working toward that. The whole farm sector is working toward reducing carbon. If you'll turn to this page, it has the amazing soybeans in it. I was talking about everyone's consumed soybeans this year, or today. And you can look through the animal feeds, the food for humans, miso, tofu, those kind of things. We have soy milk. We don't, in soybean business, we don't say soy milk. It's a soy beverage. It's not a milk product. It's, and that's the thing that we want to recognize. We're not going in that direction. The chicken down here, that's our largest consumer. They consume 50% of our soybean meal. And we're a big chicken state, and we're growing all the time. So there's a demand for the protein that goes into the chicken, and then it comes out in the eggs and in the meat. Soy cleaners is just a soy methyl ester. Over to the right, motor oil. You may be running a car that has a synthetic oil that has some soy in it. Building materials. I've got a house we built, and it has that same foam right there, and it's got soy in it. It's cleaner than formaldehyde in some of the insulation. The fuel, dust suppressants. The Midwest has a lot of gravel roads, and this keeps that dust down. And then plastics, a lot of plastics going on. whenever you eat a salad dressing, it's probably going to be from soy in it. And let's take for mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is eggs, soybean oil, and a little vinegar and some other ingredients. But that's basically what it is. You can make it at home on your own. Concrete enhancer, the paints, the asphalt, the tires. We're putting soy into high-speed Goodyear tires that'll be used on law enforcement and other cars. Henry Ford was a big pusher on soy, and he tried to use it in everything. He had a plastic car that was made from it. He had a suit of clothes that was made from it, and he said there's going to be a bushel or two in every car he produced, and that was through the plastic. So we have that full spectrum on soybeans there. And if you go back to the first page, if you go to the column on the right-hand side, these are the counties in Tennessee that produce soybeans. And so I went from the top down, and the biggest county, of course, is Dyer County, and then Gibson County, Obion, Haywood. If you're from a county that's not on this, you may be part of the total of the other counties. They may be too small or it didn't make a report on it. So all the livestock in here, everything we're using, probably the ceiling tile and even the carpet, probably has soybeans in it. Now, let me tell you what the rate is that we collect. This is a promotion board. We have a national soybean checkoff program. 1/2 of 1% of the sale price that the farmer gets goes into this research and information promotion program. So that means at $10 soybeans, a nickel goes into the program, and 1/2 of that per bushel stays in the state of Tennessee. The other half goes to the United Soybean Board. So we're dealing with quite a bit of money. Our collections this year are going to be around 2.4 from last year. In 21, 2.375, and we're expecting the soybean acreage to increase because of the nitrogen situation. Now, if you're a farmer, this is one of the biggest hits that you have, that nitrogen's gone up 200, 300%. It's really high. And so you use more nitrogen in corn production, which means we'll have a shift in acreage in Tennessee. The overall shift across the country is not going to be as dramatic as it is here, or as we expect it to be. The northern farmers put their nitrogen down in the fall, and they've already bought theirs before it went up. And the reason this market's gone up deals with Belarus, it deals with Russia, it deals with countries that we get other fertilizers from. And it's a real detriment to be able to go into a crop and have good prices, and then all of a sudden your input cost may be more than your revenue at the end. I think that gives you a general attitude, and I'm certainly open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. We appreciate you being here. Chairman Todd, I think you have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just more or less have a comment. I appreciate you laying this out for us, and I've learned some things. I have burned biodiesel in my trucks and equipment in years past, and at that point it was there was a cost benefit because soybeans were a little bit cheaper and diesel was pretty high, and we even tested it up to the 20%. It started out at 15, and we found that it did burn very, very clean. We didn't see near the exhaust that we would with straight diesel, and even clean the engine out, quite frankly. We had to initially change a lot of filters because of all that it cleaned out of those engines. So felt like they lasted longer, and so I appreciate you bringing this, and the renewable diesel is very interesting to me. I had not been familiar with that before today, so thank you for bringing this information.
Representative Todd, Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Parks, a longtime friend and neighbor. And it's just awesome to see you come and present what the soybean farmer has to do for the environment. So often farmers don't get the credit that they deserve of being a conservationist, and here we are at the forefront of the spear, trying to clean up the air and the water and just everything. So I'm proud to be a farmer. I'm proud that you were able to come and present today, and thank you for all you do and for what you do for the farmers.
Well, thank you, Representative. Right up the highway from where Rusty is, it was our home place, and my grandfather was the first senator from that area. So he followed suit. And the bad thing is he drank that same water. And of course, it's gone downhill with Rusty in here anyway.
We have time for one more question if another member has a question. Seeing none, Mr. Wells, we appreciate you being here today. We'll look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Thank you. And just for Mr. Darby, or Representative Darby, go Vols.
We will go back into session, and that completes our calendar for today. Anyone have any comments, anything they want to say at this time? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned.